Before we get started with this episode, we have a major favor to ask you.
If you could subscribe, like, and comment, especially with somebody that you'd love to see on the show, we would really appreciate that, and it would be amazing.
This helps us more than you know. In fact, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, and that is our goal, we are going to choose 2 of you to come to our very first Shoreline Show meetup with our team and our past guest.
And if you want more of the Shoreline Show, you can get on us on all the major audio podcast platforms.
Now, let's get on to the next episode. So, if you were going to talk to somebody that was wanting to get into doing chiropractic, like they were thinking about doing it and they're in school, or maybe thinking about changing their major or something, what would be your advice to them?
I mean, like any job, I'm a huge advocate of people shadowing. I mean, we have high school kids and college kids come in periodically and shadow. There's a class at the high school, at least with Jennison, that has a career focus that they can come in and they ask a bunch of questions. But it's just getting that whole, I mean, you can't be, I talked about the fact when I was younger, I was an introvert. I can't imagine doing my job if that's who I would have been. That's why my oldest right now is much more quiet. He's much more techie. We'll see if that changes again, because that's kind of where I was when I was at his age. But it's, if you can't sit still and don't like to work on a computer, you probably shouldn't be an engineer. You probably shouldn't be a CPA. And that's one of the first things that I talk to people about in terms of what they're looking at doing. Things. If you
how many years of schooling is that?
7. That's if, I mean, everything comes down to, like, I was able to finish undergrad in 4 years, and I took no breaks in grad school. So probably more than half of kids nowadays are taking, 5 years to get their undergrad? Of course, at the price of college nowadays, I would hope people are a lot more minded to get their AP credits, to do whatever they can to get through it much quicker, as much as it's a lot of fun a lot of times in college. To be hampered with that debt is just... I mean, I was fortunate enough to graduate before 9/11, so my interest rates are historically low. So thankfully, it's not quite free money because I still have to pay for it, but my interest rates are well below anything else that you can possibly get, even at the best mortgage rates out there. So
that's cool.
But you also got to be caring. I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to have that natural empathy and connection with people, you probably should not be going into that job.
I would think.
And it's it. I mean, you get too many people who get into school and they get into that 11th hour of their education and realize I'm in the wrong field. And it's like, come on. I mean, I understand those are tough decisions to make. And if you have a family member who possibly did something, you feel compelled to go into it. Man, you've got to. I mean, you never want to say your job is a life sentence, and you can always change it. But why would you go through all that training to change?
No, that's a good point.
At least not do that on purpose.
I mean, obviously life things happen, but especially when you look at being in healthcare and the medical field and holding licenses and certifications. I mean, that's a lot of work to get to that point to realize, like, what was I thinking?
Right.
So that's the biggest thing. And I mean, they have to. I mean, chiropractic is not nearly as competitive of a field as medical doctors. You don't have to take your MCATs, and you don't have to you're not going to get in if you weren't the top 10 in your class type of a situation there. There's 16 to 20 schools in the country, and for the most part, as long as you have your prerequisites and have basic grades. So that's obviously you just got to know yourself at that point in time, right? I mean, but those are the factors, right? You got to know the social side of things, the testing side of things. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's been a joke that C's for chiropractor. I mean, once you get a degree and get a license on the wall, it's not like the medical world where the Harvard medical doctor has statue. At the end of the day, it's how's that personability? How's the results? How's your touch? We're an artistic type of profession. There's a science behind us, but at the end of the day, the finesse and the ability to get people to relax and to be able to do an adjustment as craftily as possible is there. So there's just such that balance of trying to talk to kids about their futures and what they want to do, and
that's
what
good.
they want to do for it. But in the end of the day, it's rewarding, and and that's where we're at. When I get home at the end of the day and have job satisfaction, and that's something that I'm blessed to be able to each and every day know that I've cared for and impacted other people.
Yeah, that's
What's
awesome.
your like biggest success story that you've had when it comes to that?
I mean, the one that sticks out the most is there was a teacher in town who was having severe back pain, and she went to the hospital, and they laid her down to take an X-ray, and she had a fracture in her back. And they laid her down, and on the image, they didn't do an MRI, but on the image, they couldn't see anything. So when she came back in, and she came and saw me, I took a picture of her standing. So nowadays, unless people cannot stand, the hospitals finally, for low backs, are having people stand because there's such a difference with the weight bearing. And you could visibly see, and we're talking from here to here, it shifted. And then 2 days later, they fused her back. But if I hadn't taken the X-ray and hadn't been more detailed, potentially, if I had enough pressure on that low back, it could have paralyzed her.
Right.
Yeah, little scary past in your
You
world
know
there too.
my story, so
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to get into it on this episode.
Probably not. That would be a little quick there.
wouldn't be good.
But in the end, obviously, there's definitely there's very little risk
Yeah.
in chiropractic, but there's definitely some
Yeah.
precautions that people need to take, and there's always the going slow before going in like a bull in a china shop sometimes there
Yeah.
too. So, but in the end, I mean, our profession as such, I always tell people our chiropractic's malpractice insurance is less than my auto insurance.
I'm sure, yeah.
Which at the end of the day would begin to tell people the risk is nothing. You go to an anesthesiologist and they have $100,000-$200,000 a year in malpractice insurance because, man, if you're dealing with putting somebody under, if you put them under too much, they have problems. If you don't put them in enough, or surgeon, there's just such a variety there. But ours is minimal in terms of that. You always hear horror stories, and people are always like, what's happened there? And there's a lot of your strokes and paralysis and stuff, but there's always usually an underlying issue that the clinician just missed or just
Right.
unfortunately just got into a routine and just shot over it.
Right.
So I mean, we're very
Well, just like any profession, I mean, you're gonna have things that happen, right? I mean, there is going to be things that
there's an
happen.
inherent risk. I mean,
There always
but
is,
You
'cause
just have to. Yep, and you could have an off day. You could have just done something, but it's minimal.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate enough to be part of that, and but so that's great. So she's still a patient of mine. I remember how many more years ago that we saw that there, and she's still dealing with some chronic problems. But in the end, I mean, we're talking about what could have been,
Oh, yeah. That
Yeah.
could have been bad.
Yeah.
or at least damaged enough where potential bowel or bladder control problems.
Right.
It's one thing about having like a permanent numbness in the leg or a permanent sciatica, or maybe your foot can't hold itself up because you'll foot drop there. But
Yeah.
you start damaging a nerve so much where you have incontinence with your bladder or bowel. Yeah, no bueno.
That's,
Yeah, that
yeah,
would,
that's not good. Not
that
good.
sounds awful.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but
Wow.
yeah, in the end of the day, my favorite stories are always come back to dealing with either athletes or children, because when you're dealing with somebody young and you're dealing with somebody who is healthy, and you have kind of, like I said, a short circuit, and you just, let me fix that circuit, and it's better. I mean, that's where you see the greatest success and the greatest reward when just with one life changing. Somebody kid who wets the bed. Not all bedwetting is because of something wrong with somebody's back.
Right.
And all of a sudden, for even 8-year-olds who's been wetting their bed their entire life, and now all of a sudden doesn't.
Yeah.
It just changes.
Yeah.
It's just great to be part of that. It's not a miracle, but just science, and you just fix something a little bit, and the
Yeah.
body healed itself, and
Yeah.
you just happen to be part of it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that
is
is cool.
wonderfully blessed to be able to be part of that.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Cool. So how do you, with your business and your career that you have, how do you use that to help raise your kids up to their full potential?
I mean, obviously, first with healthcare, I mean, we just have a much more natural approach to everything. My wife is a nurse practitioner, is much more apt to work on preventative things and nutritional things versus going to things. So that's kind of the gold standard of what we have there. But I just think both of our kids see them, two parents who are in healthcare who have worked hard. It's setting a good example for hard work and discipline and stuff like that. And we want them to have ownership of what they do, and we keep trying to remind them that God's going to call them to something, but we don't. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean for them to follow in our footsteps there, and not to be pressured under that, because at the end of the day, they can serve in any way they possibly can and have fulfillment there. They don't need to go into healthcare, and but it's just being hard work and doing things with excellence and trying to see that there. And it doesn't mean we don't come home in a bad mood or have had problems and things like that too.
Yeah.
So
It's called life, right?
it is called life. Yeah. Yep. And it's tough. I mean, my wife's job in primary care is tough with. She deals with a lot more disease and a lot more cancer and a lot more mental health issues, and she comes home worn out because it's a lot of.
I can
I mean, that's
imagine.
it, right? I mean, people come in and they pretty much take their baggage and dump it on their provider, which is kind of the job. But it's hard to sift through all of that, and then come home and then try to give your best to your kids and best to your spouse. And I mean, that's the biggest thing over the 18 years we've been together, of having that grace and having that awareness. And if we have a bad day, to be able to kind of isolate and stay away and trying to teach that to our kids, that that's what happens. And that's the pros and cons of certain jobs, right? I mean, if you're not going to call to that, then you don't have to deal with it.
Right.
But you just got to find out where your niche is going to be, and then serve to your full capacity.
Yeah, I always kind of, when I come home, and you're helping people, because I mean, you're a totally different profession, but you're helping people. Every entrepreneur I talk to has the same problem. You're almost like on a high for the day. Like, you're helping, you're doing, you're serving, you're doing all these things, and then when you come home, your kids are on that same high as you are. So to try to adjust and come down, you and your wife to come down to I call it a high a little bit, like to come down to that level, and I can imagine when, I don't want to say saving lives, but you're essentially improving people's lives. So it's like coming down from that to like, did you guys get at least your beds made?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just tough. Like, I mean, my kids know, like, when I pull into the garage, they have like the little cubbies right in front of where I park, and it just drives me nuts when I got coats hanging out and shoes all over the place. And it's just like, just want to come home to some sense of
you guys did something with your lives too.
Well, yeah, it's just you want order, right?
Yeah.
You have chaos and order, and you walk in. That's the first thing I see every day, and they still don't get it, because within 2 days they take their shoes and they fling them underneath in the garage there and stuff like that. And it's just like trying to ease up on you guys, and certain things don't need to be perfect, but this is where I'm at.
I can relate. Yeah, I have 3 kids myself, so I understand that.
Yeah.
But they're gonna be gone soon. Hard to think. 6, 7, 8
take
years,
long.
and
It flies by. It's one of those things where, me and my wife talk about that. Our life's going to change a ton in the next 5 to 6 years. I mean, my youngest right now is 12. My oldest is 16.
wow. Yeah.
So you figure in 6 years, my youngest is going to be 18.
Yep.
And you talk about these things, and even though it's hard, when they're young, and there's a lot of hard things that you have to deal with, especially teenagers. But once it's done, you kind of miss it, and I can imagine. So
it's a journey. Yeah.
Yeah, you love it,
And I keep trying to tell them every night, I'm like, my goal here is to hopefully equip you so that when you leave my house, that I'm always going to be here for you, but you are able to hopefully make decisions that will be smart and wise and not put yourself at risk. And that's the hard part now compared to when we were younger. We didn't have all this social media stuff, so you got all these situations that happen, and most of it be word of mouth. Now it's people's recording, people's videoing, all this stuff, so it's out there forever.
Right.
So they just have to, they're always like, oh, when do we get our phone, or when do we get all this stuff? And I'm like, I don't know if you're ever going to get one at this point in time. I don't see any. You can get a watch that has it's almost like you can call us when you need us, and that's about it. You don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just the ability to discern with your young growing brains what's important, what's not important, and the risk is just overwhelming sometimes. And
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where life is. One of the people on our episode said at one point in time, I thought was pretty neat. They go, it's interesting. We're living in an era where our great grandkids are going to be able to see what we said on this episode today.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's weird to think about. So like you're saying this, it's going to go out there, and they're going to be able to watch
Can you imagine if
that.
we could go back and listen to our great-great-grandparents?
That would be weird, right?
Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea who they are even,
I
but
know.
we're going to have stuff out there that people can access forever.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, and even obviously those are back 2 or 3 generations, but even just,
Right.
I mean, I think about the fact my father's been gone for like 13 years now almost, and obviously there's probably a few videos out there from camcorder stuff back in the days,
Right.
but there's really no
audible.
really. I'm just thinking of all the different things. I almost want to like give lessons in life and
Yeah.
and store it for later, but yeah, how much more memory they're going to be able to have outside of ours that are fading.
Yeah.
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 I think that's it. There's a blessing in that as well.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'll post a lot of stuff on Facebook and social media, especially Facebook, where I don't post it. I just put the audience as only me.
Oh.
So it's like documented of this is what my thought process, almost like a journal was during this time.
Sure.
But I'm the only one that sees it. So a lot of stuff from like church and like thought processes
That's a
and
pretty
things
good
like
idea.
that.
Yeah.
So
Share
then
it
my,
just to yourself.
yeah, and so then if my kids, if something ever happened to me in the future, my kids can go to that and say, oh, this is how my dad's perspective of that he's seen this or he's seen that. Yeah.
Those memories and that shifted through and
Yeah. Or in Shelley's case, it all disappeared.
It all disappeared. Oh, gosh. Did you hear about that?
I did, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah,
was
that's
awful.
wild. Yeah.
My whole Facebook was taken over.
yeah, just gotta be careful. I had another friend of mine this morning who somebody got his Facebook there
Yep.
too, and he was like, "Oh, what's your number? I need you to give me a code." I'm like, "No, you don't."
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I sent him a text message, and thankfully he locked his account down. And
Yeah.
but it's just like it's just exhausting on all the things that they try to get you to click on.
Oh, and they're so
nowadays.
good
It's
at it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I probably spend 15 minutes a day, I swear, going through my emails, having to purge out, and they always like the days of just the African prince wanting to send you money, or a beneficiary from a long lost family member in England.
Yeah.
And now it's just so much more tactical. They'll send you
Well, and they're
fake
threatening.
bills, they'll say
Yeah.
like, yeah, we broke into your phone and saw you doing this. If you don't send us money, I'm like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
No, at least I know mine did. 'Cause
Right,
I'm not
right.
dumb enough to
I
click
actually
on
had a
certain things.
client at one point in time. She bought into that Prince thing,
Oh.
and she tried convincing me. She's like, "I just need the money because if you give me," she wanted me to because she wanted me to sell her house, and she wanted me to give her a couple $1,000 to send to them because she was going to get millions, and she was going to.
I
I'm like,
had to do the filing fees in order to get the actual
yeah,
money.
I'm like,
but-
there's just no way. I was like, yeah, but
oh, people.
yeah, people
That's
are wild.
crazy.
But,
That's crazy. Well, on our episodes, one of the cool things that we do is we have a message in the bottle.
That's what you mentioned, yeah.
Yeah, so there is a message in there for you. So
Is it? It's for me, but it wasn't to me.
well, they didn't know who they were
Okay,
writing
right,
it
right,
to.
right.
Yeah, it's
so
for
Same thing
you.
with me.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Does it have their name on it?
I don't know.
I don't know. We don't see what they write. We
You
have
don't
no
see-
idea.
Okay.
We don't have
grab the
any
bottle.
We have no
Yeah.
idea what it is or anything.
Yeah.
You would think we'd look at them, but we don't.
Wow, should go toss it in Buck Creek behind your house. And
Yeah, there
See
we
where it
go.
ends
find
up.
there, huh? All right. Let's see here. What interesting question. When you were first building your career, how much influence, if any, did people you were close to affect your initial professional decisions?
That's a good question.
I mean, I already shared with the fact that I've got family members. It's interesting about my aunt and my uncle. My uncle, we call it the old mom and pop shop. I'd mentioned my cousin now works with her dad, but a lot of chiropractors, we call it the mom and pop shop because generally speaking, because back then 90+% of chiropractors were men, dad would be the chiropractor and mom would run the office.
Right.
So it's just been interesting over the years.
Is that changing a little bit?
It's changed a lot. I mean, I think
Really?
the enrollment now, if not 50%, there's given the huge dynamics of women and children in healthcare. I mean, more than half of my patient base is women.
Okay.
So more and more women are getting into it. It's just a tough venture to be a professional woman and balance possibly being a career, possibly being a business, possibly having a family. So it's a juggle. I've had an associate who was a female. She had a baby, so she went down to 3 days a week, and it's just trying to find that. I think everybody's balance right.
Yeah.
But it's always, again, harder when you go into a profession, again, that has tons of student debt, has licenses, and to be able to try to find that, because it'd be great to take 5 years off and help raise your children in the beginning, right? But how do you do that in the world of license there? But yeah, my uncle, anytime I had a chiropractic question, I would talk to him. My Aunt Deb is his office manager still to this day, and frequently would have to talk with her about insurance questions and billing issues and things like that too. So
what a great resource!
But it was phenomenal there, and I've shared multiple places over the years. Well, blessed. I've been to have them. Now we get together. We said Thanksgiving a couple weeks ago. We're getting together with the extended family on Sunday, and then we'll have all those. My uncle's brother won't be there, but my cousins will all be there. So we'll have like 6-7 chiropractors together. So I think at this point in time, we've been in practice long enough so we don't chat about things quite as much as we did earlier on there. But
yeah, because you've been through it all now.
We've been through it, yeah. But it's just, we'd have district meetings with chiropractors, and there's a family over on the northeast side of town, the Bartons, who have like 4 chiropractors in their family, and so we have ours. So it's like you have different like mafias. Detroit's got 2 or 3 families that have got multiple family members that are chiropractors and stuff like that too.
Right.
So it's just neat there to be able to have some of those initial decisions and things like that too. I was blessed in the beginning. My parents were in a position to be able to co-sign for a couple of my loans. So I had equipment that I needed to purchase, and then I needed to have a little bit of a line of credit because it took me 3 or 4 months before I was generating enough revenues in order to support my business on its own there. So
it takes a little time, doesn't it?
It does, and that's the tough part with the red tape nowadays with people starting their own businesses is having those cosigns. You're not always capable. Insurance companies are taking so much longer getting new doctors into networks. So it's like, okay, I got my license, I'm supposed to start, but then I need to wait 6 months before I can actually start seeing these patients. So it's kind of crazy. That red tape. I mean, it's just sad to see. You want people to be able to get off and get started like I did 5 days into practice. Even Medicare back then, I could start seeing patients, hold my claims, and then a month later when I finally got the green light, I can send them all in. Now you have to wait until they go through all of this processing, and it's just forever. Yeah, I mean, it's literally, Blue Cross, my current associate, took them 6 months by the time they put them into the network, put them into my group. Why?
Wow.
Yeah, just horrible business by the insurance companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I was, again, very fortunate enough to have guidance, and there because my uncle's a chiropractor, I've met a number of other chiropractors in West Michigan and in the state who I was able to tap into. A guy named Lou Squires up in Ludington, Kirk Steckety and Barry McAlpine in Holland. I can just name a few other ones there too, but just blessed that we're more, it's probably less now, but back then it was much more of a family. Once you became part
because
of it.
BJ got into it too, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So his sister took over his father's practice.
Oh, did she really?
Ann. Yeah. So it's just kind of a neat thing. And nowadays it's not as common to people, like we were never accepted as much 20, 40 years ago.
That's the first time when I was young. Had been, I don't know, I'd have been like 18, 19. We were at a place, and I remember it was like just a get together, and BJ was there, and I watched him like adjusting these newborn. He adjusted a newborn right there on the floor, and I'm like, I was so thrown off by it because I didn't know much about it back then. I was like, what is happening? I was like, these people are just like snapping babies' necks in front of me. Like, this is like the craziest thing. But now you start to learn more about it, and you're like, oh, this is wild.
Yeah, get more strength in their necks, and you hear all that lovely little popping and that gas stuff in the joints there. But babies don't have as much muscle tone, so it's more of a massage just to kind of wiggle things up there. So, but yeah, it's, again, we're much more commonplace, and chiropractors now hang out with medical doctors and lawyers and people like that. So we're not quite the black sheep of healthcare anymore. So in the past, people were, that was it. We hung out with each other.
Right.
And it's just a different thing. Hearing the stories from my aunt and uncle and all those, or all their kids would go to the conferences. Now hardly anybody brings their kids because first everybody's busy with sports and music and stuff. My wife hasn't been to a conference in years. So it doesn't make sense to take our kids and go put in a hotel room that may or may not have a pool. I mean, what's the point? But back then, that was their community. They would all hang out and do stuff together.
Which is kind of cool.
There's definitely, again, it's something that's missed.
Yeah.
We just don't have the camaraderie and that uniqueness and that connection we have, because more and more, we get half of our profession wants to continue to be this individual, holistic line, and more, and the other half want to be more and more like a branch off the medical world.
Yeah.
So that's the good old balance that we have in our profession, but I think you get that anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, if they can head in at least in a direction of more healthier choices to win, one way or another, And
that's, I think that's the everybody can work on that one. This society would be much more healthy. We got the COVID epidemic and whatever else is going on with all these things there, and realize that, I mean, in the end, our bodies are meant to be exposed, are meant to be challenged, are meant to adapt, and definitely not going to go into the full-on just discussions about vaccinations and immunizations and stuff like that. But there's the body was blessed and created to be able to fight these things naturally. If we don't have,
we could go there, but probably it'd be a long conversation.
It would be a long conversation and stuff like that too. And I've my office is very pro-choice. You come in, you want information, we'll give you the information needed. But in the end, you have to make your own informed decision on what you're going to put into your body, and if you're a parent, what you're going to put in your kid's body and stuff like that. So, if you want to do it, we'll definitely give you some recommendations on how to possibly do things safer. Otherwise, if you decide you don't want to,
I think data will help a lot. I think if we can collect accurate data, especially in your industry where it's actually the more holistic way. I think if you can collect data, I think it'll just start to show truth. I don't think we have to push our agendas. I think truth just reveals itself over time.
I mean, that you would hope the numbers. Of course, everybody's skeptical on if the data is actually real. So that's the hard part with things, right? Even nowadays with pharmaceutical testing and stuff, there's been enough fudge data and incomplete stuff that they've talked about, but nothing's ever been done about. So
you see some documentaries that they do really well that come out, though, that's shining a lot of light to some of that stuff too.
Yeah, but it's still considered questionable, and so it's tough.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, now it's your turn to write
a question to who knows what's going to be on the next person to come in.